Hi, and welcome to the November monthly wrap-up here at Veritas. Throughout November, we spoke all about rezoning and finding your mojo, which was the topic of flow. This was entering that state of effortlessness yet intense concentration that's commonly associated with athletes and artists and other creative types, but is also something we can all experience throughout our daily lives and in our pursuit of our work or other meaningful pursuits that we might have. This month, we really wanted to look at the topic in regards to what it meant for our daily lives and how we can re-enter a state of flow when we feel like things are getting a little bit hard, or that we're feeling like the universe or the momentum of the world is moving against us. Yeah, when those times, obviously we've probably all had it in life where things just seem to be working and clicking, and other times just everything seems effortful, we're anxious, maybe we've got a bit of apathy if things are going a little bit too easy, and we're just not in that state of flow or that state of being in the zone. So as always, we looked across this topic in 4 different blogs and also the 2 podcasts, and then now I'm bringing you the monthly wrap up. So the state of flow or being in the zone is something that has been discussed by humans for hundreds of years. But the theory of flow and how it relates to our modern life is not something that has been commonly talked about or discussed until the 1970s or 80s, when some psychologists, in particular Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who was a psychologist from Hungary, really started to explore the topic after being fascinated by how those creative types or how athletes were able to work relentlessly in periods, how they were able to perform at high levels of quality for these little brief periods, whether it be an hour like a game or whether it be a day if it was more the creative artistic type, and looking at obviously how the quality of performance during that time was so high. So how could we as humans seek to enter that state more often? How could we harness the power of the zone or flow and bring it more commonly into our lives to improve not only our performance but our quality of life? Because something around flow is it's not just performing at your best, but it's that just complete lack of distraction or noise from the outside world, where you are connected to something which is intrinsically important to you and something that you feel competent and confident in doing, and therefore can garnish and foster a good sense of self-efficacy during that period as well. So flow is not just a performance thing. It's not just something related or important for those that are in high pressure environments, highly competitive environments, or creative environments. It's something that can be a benefit to all of us that are connected to something that we want our lives to stand for, or something that we just want to be good at and see meaning and purpose in as well. So what is the zone? What is flow? And I will transition in between those 2 terminologies throughout this webinar as well, because they're effectively the same thing. And you might have heard of it as zone, you may have heard of it as flow. It is being wholly present and concentrated on one particular task and trying to achieve a particular goal within that task, as well as where you are free from any distractions or noise that could be coming from the outside world, and we start to lose sense of time in that period as well. And we may forget to do things like eat or sleep or go to the bathroom, etc., and we lose that concept of time as well. It's hard to understand, and psychologists have been hard to create one single framework around the zone and flow, because it is counterintuitive in so many different ways. It is effortless, yet you are intensely concentrated. It is hyper focus, yet at ease and free at the same time as well. It is extremely important, yet not connected to an emotion when you're doing it as well. So it sort of sits on both ends of a spectrum when we're talking about it, and the state and impact that it has on us, which makes flow and the zone a hard thing to talk about in regards to one succinct model. But ultimately, what psychologists such as Mihai Csikszentmihalyi identified was it was that hyper focus with complete engagement. Nothing else seems important. Nothing else is even on the radar when we're talking about flow and being in the zone. It is a complete commitment to that activity and viewing it as simply the only thing present in your life for that period of time. So although psychologists such as Mihai Csikszentmihalyi have not been able to identify one clear model on what flow in the zone is, what they did recognize in times where people entered the zone or people entered flow is some 4 environmental and personal factors that occurred in that period. The first is that it was being engaged, and when flow mostly occurred, it was when you're engaged in something that was intrinsically important to you, something that you saw or that the people see as being of tremendous purpose and value to themselves, what they stand for, their journey for in life, and or something that was really important for society as well. A complete dedication to a specific goal that was intrinsically motivated. So the difference between an intrinsic motivation and an extrinsic motivations are those things which society views as being important. You're doing it for money, status, something that is reliant on other people giving you that gratification. Even money is not worth it unless you're buying something from someone else. Status is obviously not worth it until someone gives you that status or praise from someone else as well. Intrinsic motivation is where you see the goal as being something internally important into yourself, something that is you are aligned to and something that is motivated to your core and something that you are finding is so meaningful and purposeful to you as well. It is motivated, and that if you complete this task, it does not matter if you get praise or reward from under others. Ultimately, you get that sense of gratification, satisfaction in doing a good job and achieving some sort of outcome that is important to you as a person. So when we're trying to enter state of flow, whether it be personal life, work life, it's got to be, it doesn't have to be, but it's much more apparent and a state that we entered into when we are seeing a task and we're asking the 5 whys below it. Why is this important? Why am I doing it? And working down that chain to get to the core understanding of what is pushing and motivating you to get this task done, to go for this run, to perform this or create that. Why is it important to you? And asking that continuously to get to the real core of inner and why it is just something that is absolutely necessary for you to be doing, and the only thing that you should be focusing on when you're engaged with it as well. So understanding that purpose, that meaning, that importance, the want versus have to. Why do you want to be doing this rather than have to be doing it? So from this point of flow and zone, you can somewhat manufacture a state of flow and zone in something you don't initially perceive as being enjoyable. If you are willing to, and if you are capable of exploring that why and converting it from a have to into a want to. So looking at your tasks each day at work and looking at them and creating them, perceiving them, and bringing an attitude towards them that is based on the want to rather than the have to. No matter whether it's the most exciting task you've ever done at work, obviously easier to look at the want to rather than have to in those scenarios, or the dullest, most daunting task maybe, where it can be a bit more challenging to find the want to rather than the have to. And if you can sit in that space and ask the 5 whys and challenge yourself to convert that thinking, then you're giving yourself a greater chance to enter the zone and to get into the flow. The sense of flow and the sense of zone is much easier to achieve when there is a sense of progress, when you can see yourself moving towards the goal, when you can see progress being made in real time, in live time. Now, we'll talk to the real time, live time in a minute. What I want to be talking to more firstly is the sense of progress. The zone is much easier to achieve when you've got short-term goals, not just long-term goals as well. And they're even more likely to enter the state of zone or flow when those goals, those short-term goals that you have set towards the bigger picture, is self-led, something that you've been able to deem as necessary or the stepping stone towards that bigger vision and bigger goal. The important part here, if we're talking about organizational components of flow and being in the zone, particularly if you are a manager or leader of others, is being able to create, or what you can do for your people to help them enter zone and your teams to enter zone, is to create autonomy. Give them the big picture, the long-term goal, but then allow your people to determine and take charge of what are the steps and progress markers along the way, and give them freedom to undertake that task. You will get more out of your people and you'll get more out of yourself if you can take control of that short-term or smaller goal setting that works towards the bigger picture. So as a team, manager and a leader, set the big goal, set the purpose of the team, of what we're trying to achieve, but then give your people the autonomy to do it their way. And that will help them to better get into a state of flow or be in the zone with that work. And that will increase the speed and quality of work that you're getting out of yourself or your people as well. So make sure there's a sense of progress. If you're trying to enter the zone, don't just look at what this is going to look like in 2 days' time, because that is a mammoth task, a mammoth amount of energy, a mammoth amount of vulnerability we have to put ourselves in, potential for failure versus success. Make sure you're breaking it into shorter term goals so you can see your efforts making a difference. You can see your efforts pushing you towards where you want to be going as well. That is going to give you more motivation and dedication to go. It's going to push down the opportunity to procrastinate and distract, because you are ticking things off. This is a pleasant task. This is a task I'm confident in because I am progressing. If we set the goals too big or too challenging, which we'll also talk about in a minute, that is where we can start reaching for the phone, reaching for the TV, reaching for whatever it might be to seek out that sense of distraction or procrastination as well. When you're doing that, when you're setting the smaller task or the tasks that are also easier to enter a state of flow, is when we're going to get immediate feedback. And this is part of intrinsic as well. We're able to give ourselves immediate feedback. We can also get immediate feedback extrinsically, but it is easier to get it intrinsically as well. Make sure you're crafting your tasks around an ability to get immediate feedback. And that's not so much from someone else, but at least what are the X's and O's, what is the model you're working through that hits a green light at the end, that immediate feedback to know that you're doing a good job. This is all again about helping us stay focused through that element of competence and confidence as well. If we are unsure of what we're doing is correct, if we're feeling uncertain, then that's a hesitation. That's a point where we will hesitate towards a task. That is a point where we may look for something easier. Again, where humans are always geared towards putting the least amount of effort and the least amount of vulnerability we can. So if we're not getting immediate feedback from the task we're doing, you're much more likely to procrastinate on them, look for a distraction, bump yourself out of a state of flow or zone, because that little voice starts talking about, is this right or is this wrong? And that's not flow. Flow comes from just being in there and being immersive and being confident, knowing that your efforts are making a difference. You are getting that sense of progress. Any opportunity to come in and question whether or not you're doing it right or whether or not what you're doing is going to result in a positive outcome is a distraction, is a little voice. It is breaking down the cocoon or the shelter of that distraction, that concentration, for you. So make sure you're setting up your task so that you can get some immediate feedback. That's going to obviously look very different from each task that you do. The famous recount of someone being in the zone or someone being in a state of flow is Michael Jordan in the 1992 finals game against Portland. Yep. Portland were pulling ahead towards the end of the game, and after a timeout was called by Chicago, Michael Jordan came out and he's quoted on this intense sense of concentration and came out and his performance went through the roof. The immediate feedback that Michael Jordan was getting during that state of flow, the remainder of that game, was obviously the scoreboard. You drop a shot in, you get your 2 points. The margin of the score is retracting. And in addition, was also seeing his performance rate up. More possessions, more rebounds, more points. All those immediate factors that were ticking off as immediate feedback that what his concentration and actions were doing were pushing him towards the goal and short-term goals that he wanted to do or wanted to achieve. So just drawing on a relatively famous example of zone and being in the flow. This is the game where you might remember that after, I think, hitting 6 threes in a very short space of time and just absolutely being everywhere on the court and dominating, Michael Jordan looked over to the bench and gave the shrug, being like, I'm not sure what's happening, but this is happening easy and happening quickly, and we're on a roll here as well. But it's a very famous sort of example of someone being in the flow quite publicly and having obviously a very good outcome as well. What grows on to all of this as well is we are much more likely to enter a state of flow and or zone when the challenge matches our skills. So this talks to sense of progress and clear immediate feedback as well. But when we're trying to set up a task that we need to be in the zone for, we want to be making sure we're setting ourselves up for success. We want to be seeing like what we're doing is, as I keep saying, making a difference and challenging, but achievable as well. So if the task is too easy, we can enter a state of apathy. We can start switching off and getting distracted as well. It can be too easy, it's not fulfilling. Seeing through this project or this game or winning this game is not something that is ultimately going to cost me much or cost me anything or be anything to hang my hat on. And therefore we can start to be distracted by what else is happening or lose interest in what we're doing. Again, all allowing for that sense of distraction to creep in. If it's too hard, then we can get anxious. Yep, again, that can be where we start looking too long term, not sure if what we're doing is right, not questioning our competency. So we want to be entering into a task that we know is achievable, but challenging. We know that it is something that if I don't bring my A game, I won't get it done. But if I do bring my A game and execute my skills, I'm putting myself in a pretty good position to achieve that positive outcome that I'm looking for. The effort needs to match the reward pretty much as well. So if you're finding yourself easily distracted or you're apathetic, maybe you're not getting a good sense of achievement out of your tasks, they're too easy and you need to dial it up. If you're trying to will yourself into tasks and into a game or something, and you're finding yourself to get too anxious or hesitating, it might mean you're trying to bite off more than you can chew, and you need to scale back the complexity or technicality or size of that challenge as well. Now, you can do that not by letting go of your goals, but maybe it's about setting better short-term goals, talking back to one of the earlier points. They're going to help you build the skills along the way so you can keep seeing yourself move forward towards that big, hairy, audacious goal, but in a way that is building your self-efficacy and seeing you grow and develop on the way there. The reality might be, though, that you have to allow yourself enough time to get there. Yeah. So it's not about watering down your goal, but maybe being realistic with the time it's going to take to get there due to size of task or complexity of task as well. And that's normal, that's natural. That means that you are challenging yourself to try something new, which is great as well. So we don't want to allow the zone or the feeling of the zone to encapsulate, not allow us to push ourselves either. So it's always got to be at that upper end. And finally, the zone and flow is defined by that intense focus. So if you're looking to enter the zone, enter the sense of flow for yourself during a task, you've got to remove other distractions. And this is probably the easiest out of all the 5 points I've been through so far. Don't put your phone in front of you. Remove screens. Remove as much noise as possible. Put yourself in a space or an environment that's going to be conducive for you to concentrate and enter that state of flow. The more dings and pop-ups you've got happening, the more it's pulling your attention elsewhere. recognizing time, recognizing how much you've done versus being in that intense flow and figuring and working through it. So there are 5 factors that are really critical to getting your mojo back or entering that state of flow or being in the zone. For our teams, so obviously it's a bit harder to get a bunch of people in the zone or in a sense of flow at the same time. It's hard enough with one person, and no one listening to this, and I know for myself as well, is 100% of the time in a state of flow or in a state of being in the zone as well. So how do you time it so you're getting 4 or 5 people to all be in that same state as once? Well, it's really about what you're doing outside of that moment you want flow to occur. It can't just be a turn or change in you as the leadership person or you as a team member that perpetuates that sense of flow. It happens from day dot when you're putting the team together or you're bringing the team's attention to another task. You've got to have a clear focus and purpose for your team as well. The team needs to know what they're trying to achieve and why that's important and why that group importance for the team or company is important for them as an individual as well. And it's absolutely fine to have individual meanings or purposes for why that task is important. As long as the end goal is the same, the individual meanings can be certainly different. And encourage open communication about that. There is no right or wrong meaning. It's what is motivating and purposeful and important to your people. So making sure that you as the leader or team member are really being hard on the team, having a clear focus of what we're trying to achieve, why that's important for the company or team, and why that's important for the individuals beneath it. Connect everyone to that purpose. And that flows in to then having a clear dedication to the goal. You as a team member need to show your other team members that what you're doing is important, that what we are doing is important. You need to back up the talk. Yep, it's not about just revving people up with a bit of leadership talk or a couple of motivational YouTubes. You want to be making sure that you as a leader and you as a team member are living out the importance of this task, is living out how important it is that these tasks be completed and be done very well. And that allows ultimately for the team to see challenges for that and not a problem, but something to be overcome, something that is purposeful to put ourselves through a bit of intensity, through a bit of challenge to succeed at and remove, to better allow ourselves and achieve the goals of what the team and individuals are looking at as well. So flow is certainly something to be discussing as a group. It's certainly something to be discussing as an individual. And it's not just for those that are type A. It's not just for those that are type A personalities or ultra dedicated or wanting to change the world. It has benefits for all of us, even those who just may want to move through life and sort of, live a pretty relaxed life. Being in the zone is going to help that. You can't be relaxed and concentrating on those things which are nice and comforting for you if you're also being distracted by all the other stuff that's happening in the world at the same time as well. So use these 5 tips, whether you want to climb Mount Everest or you want to live a relaxed, wholesome lifestyle. Live out these 5 things. Make sure when you're entering activities or moments that are aligned with that purpose for you, that you are setting yourself up for some success in that area as well. Because if you're allowing distractions to come in, you're not concentrating. And if you're not concentrating, you're opening yourself up to be overwhelmed, or you're not going to have the capacity to perform at your best. So thank you very much for listening to the November wrap-up. I hope you've taken something away from it. I really encourage you, if you haven't, to read all the blogs on the podcast. They're fantastic this month. December, we're looking at "'Tis the Season to Prioritise Your Mental Health" as well. So looking at some ways that after a big year, we can all make sure that we're taking 5 over the Christmas holiday period to make sure not only are we recovering from the last 12 months, but we're setting ourselves up for a happy and high-performing 2022 as well. So thank you very much. Make sure you log on to the website. Until next time, I hope you all have a terrific few weeks, and I'll see you in December. Thank you.